Hey there, my friends, it's Dave Wood. I'm talking to you in front of my pool in Costa Rica. Today I'm going to give you a 12-letter magical word. And this word is going to make you lots more money. It's going to completely change your life. It's going to completely change the way that you look at business. And what's that word, you might ask? Well, it's a simple one. It's relationship, right? See, relationships are the key to forming good long-term business. Is there ways of making money without forming solid relationships? Yes. Is there a way of making solid money without solid relationships? No, there's not, because the only real way to keep a customer around, if you can get them, is by getting customers that like you, right? There's been a lot of studies done on this. I remember I was reading a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it was talking about how people who have clients that like them get sued less even. So if you're a doctor, for example, and you're like the best surgeon in the world, but nobody likes you, you'll actually get sued more than a bad surgeon who causes people permanent problems, but that surgeon is really likable by their customers. So getting customers that like you is really important, right? Like getting people around you who want to work with you, who like you, who trust you, who are willing to work with you for a long time. And how do you do that? You do that by focusing on relationships, and that's what's going to grow your income, and it's going to grow it really big and really stable. Now, as an example of this, you can do a few things when you're building your business that are going to create sales, right? And today it's going to be really simple content, but I want you guys to think differently. I want you to grow differently, okay? Now, if you just go out and you're focused on conversions, what's going to happen is you're going to get people who, opt in at really high rates. You're going to get people who buy things in really high ratios. But just because they opted in and just because they bought does not necessarily mean that you're going to be working with that person a year from now. I remember when I first started on the internet back in 2009, I was building my business in a totally others-focused way. And because of that, I was bringing people into a company that was operating on a trial basis. Now, normally, if you guys are in online marketing, I've got a friend who has a trial company. I've got other friends that do. We've done trials. If you're just slamming conversions at trials, you get a really high refund rate, really high chargeback rate, and you get a lot of customers that cancel. You'll have in a trial business, it's like half your customers will be gone in a month. Well, I was bringing in trials, and because I was doing it in a relationship-based way, I had 40% of the trials that I brought in were still active a year after that. And I actually still had about 30% of them active at year 2. And so literally just by focusing on building relationships, responsive relationships, I'm going to talk about that here in a minute, I literally had more retention than like bringing in 10 or 15 times that amount of people. Now here's the thing, somebody would look at that and be like, well, I could bring in more trials than that. And I'd say, well, you can, but how many trials would you need to bring in to have the equivalent of what I was bringing in still there a year from now, generating residual income? The answer is a lot. But here's the thing, it's not just the income that was generated from bringing in those customers. Because I was bringing people in a way that was congruent with relationships, a lot of them are actually still in today and still working with me today. For example, I started working with Lawrence Tam back in 2009. Lawrence Tam is still working with me today. I started working with Tracy Walker back in 2009. Tracy Walker is still working with me today. I met John Oakes back in 2010. John Oakes is still working with me today, right? A lot of the biggest organizations that I've built have been working with me literally for nearly 8 years, right? Some of them even longer, and that goes back to my past life before I was making a lot of money. They're people that I knew in childhood, right? And so let me give you an example of what a powerful relationship can do. And this is something that you can't really do by conversions, right? And I like to say you want to get a convert, not a conversion. And the two are different, and depending on what kind of business you're building, this is going to be applicable to you in different kinds of ways. There are ways of building systems, but you want to make that system build people. And I'm going to talk about that here in a minute, right? So I sponsor a guy when I first got on the internet. Now I was in a network marketing business, and you might be in an internet marketing business, you might be a coach, but all these principles are just working with people. And the great thing about working with people is that the principles, they transcend everything, and they're in every kind of business. If I was building a Kung Fu dojo, downtown, it would actually be a Kwun, which is the word in Chinese. But if I was building a Kwun, right, which just means school, but in one of the two types of Chinese, I can't remember, what would happen is I would be building my Kwun on a relationship basis. And so I would do it in a way that would be building people, and because of that, I'd get students who would be there for 10, 20, 30 years. They'd be working with me. I know how to build people, right? So first guy I sponsored, his name was Daniel, and I actually recruited Daniel when I got on the internet by posting a video out. It was a really bad capture page, had like 10% or 8% conversions. I got low conversions, but good people that like me, right? And so I call Daniel up, I recruit him on the phone, and Daniel at the time, he was in a company called Primerica. Primerica sells insurance services, financial services, and things like that. And he wanted to learn how to grow it online. So I start working with Daniel on the internet, and at the time he was also a college kid. So he was in Primerica and he was a college kid and he was looking to build his business online. By the way, I have no association with Primerica. I really like them. Just so you know, if you're watching this from Primerica, I like you guys, you're cool, and I have no association with you. But in any case, I get Daniel in, Daniel joins my business, he starts working with me. Now, Daniel later actually stopped doing the business because he wanted to focus on school. He actually quit, but he sponsored a guy named Paul, right? Now, I built a relationship with Paul that has lasted like 8 years, right? And we work together off and on still. But here's the thing with Paul. Paul and his organization have done with me since 2009 about $30 million in sales, actually more, right? So that organization, from the very first guy that I sponsored, has done $30 million in sales. Now, I know lots of people, right? Lots of people on the internet, I know lots of people offline that they'll never do $30 million in sales doing what they're doing, right? And working with who they're working, like in 50 years of doing what they're doing. How did the first guy that I sponsor result in $30 million in sales? It's because I connected with one man, I trained him well, he listened, and he learned how to become a master at recruiting, and that was Paul, right? And Paul brought in a generation of leaders that brought in a generation of leaders, and right now, I'm working with somebody like 7 levels down that is also a 6-figure earner that lives out in Australia, named Sarita, and Sarita is a generational downline from Paul, who was the very first guy that I sponsored on the internet. That's the power of a relationship. You can't do that with a capture page. You can't do that with a sales video. You can't do that by pushing a message on somebody. You can only do that by really connecting with somebody. Now, here's the thing. To really form relationships, I've got mentors in this industry. One of my mentors, Oren, I've talked about him a lot because he's written some books that I've read, and I always read what he tells me to read because he reads a lot and he makes more money than I do. And so, you know, what he told me is he told me that the problem people have with relationships is people aren't right with themselves and they're not right with God, right? And I like to say that because there's different beliefs here, and there's, you know, I've seen people of every different kind of belief system really succeed. And I like to say that if you're not really lined up with your highest level of values spiritually to physically, usually you're not going to be able to connect with other people. Because connections with other people, I got a dog here who wants to connect, wants to be, it's like, you're doing videos again, I want to say hello. So this is Firulais. Hi. It's a weird name, isn't it? It's a dog. How are you doing? So in any case, right, if you're not right with yourself, you're not going to be able to be right with other people, right? For example, let's say you're recruiting and what you're doing is you're recruiting people and you want to push your message onto them, right? What's going to happen is you're going to chase that person away because you're acting from like a center that is not centered. You're acting from a place of need. So a lot of times what people do is, even if they're calling people, if they're connecting with them, if they're closing them on the phone, which is a lot more efficient than doing something through email, especially if you're doing it well, especially if you can build a team of people doing it. But if you're bringing people in and you're pushing something onto somebody and you're not connecting with them and you're not forming a relationship, what happens is that person, they are going to sense that you need something and they're going to be turned off. But if you come from a place where you're totally right with yourself, you're totally aligned, you totally know who you want to work with and who you don't want to work with, and you're just there to serve, the whole energy of that interaction comes across differently. When you're right with yourself, when you're right with your highest level of values, you can then be right with other people and you can connect with them in a new way. When you need something, and when you're going to somebody because you need something, it feels wrong, doesn't it? Have you ever been in a relationship like that where you've been desperate, they've been desperate, and you remember how that felt, right? Have you ever been, if you're a lady, have you ever got a guy walk up to you and just you feel like he wants something, right? You know how that feels? Well, what about when you get around somebody and they don't need anything from you? They're totally okay, right? They're totally okay. And you get around that person and then they connect with you on a deep spiritual level, right? But they're not trying to get anything from you, and maybe you even buy something from that person, but you buy it because you want it, right? That's how you get right with other people, is you get right with yourself, you get right with your higher power, right? Your higher source, your you know, like higher self, if you want to say that, your super unconscious, whatever you want to call it, right? God, right? You want to get right spiritually with yourself. And when you do that, you come from a place that is not based on need, it's based on service. And when you're others focused, right? When you're others focused, when you're focusing on other people and you're focusing on serving those other people, When you're doing that, you're going to build a relationship and a connection that is based on them and their future and what's best for them. And that will create residual income that will last generationally. It'll compound. It'll last for life, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about 5 keys to relationship-based commissions, because you don't want to just form friends, right? And this is something where people also get mixed up, is they hear something like this and they're like, okay, I'm going to build a relationship with my list. I'm going to be friends with them, right? You want to be friends, but you want responsive friends if you're going to form new friends online, right? In other words, I'm going to form a relationship with Jose, but we still have a business relationship, right? So Jose's making videos and I'm paying Jose, and so Jose needs to, meet standards in his videos, and I need to meet my standards and pay Jose. It's a relationship that also has business tied. Jose, if you ever stopped working with me, I'd go out and hang out and go watch fights and do cool stuff with you too. But the reality is it's a business relationship, right? If I'm going to sponsor a new rep, it's a business relationship. So you're not just looking to, have friends that you just hang out with. You're looking to have friends that have direction and aim together, and that will actually listen to you if you're going to mentor them, right? Because one of the problems that you'll run into if it's literally just you, Confucius used to talk about this. If you get too close to people, right, and it's just like you're dumping your problems on them and stuff like that in a business relationship, they'll stop listening to you, okay? And so you want to focus on responsive relationships. Now here's some points that I want to cover for that, right? Number one point is, right, you want to focus on not a conversion, but getting a convert, right? Now conversions are important too. You want to bring in as many sales as possible. What do you do with them after you bring them in, right? What do you deliver to them? Are you engaging them in a process that produces a convert? And what's a convert do? The convert then becomes totally involved with your community. They build a lifelong relationship with you. They build with you for the rest of the future. See, I want to work with a team that I work with for the next 40 years, right? Regardless of how the internet changes, regardless of how technology changes, regardless of how business changes, I want to work with them for the next 40 years. Well, to do that, I'm not going to just focus on getting a conversion. I'm going to focus on creating a convert, right? Now here's the thing that I also want to focus on is there's a difference between a conversion and a responsive relationship. Now you want both, right? But a responsive relationship is not just, once again, a relationship that's a friendship. It's a responsive friendship. In other words, you're responding to them, they're responding to you in a positive, congruent way towards both of your outcomes, right? So you want to focus on responsive relationships versus just getting a conversion. You also want to focus on getting a convert versus just a conversion. Now here's a next point, and this is point number 3 that I want to focus on, is that is what creates a residual income that lasts. A lot of times people are looking at, hey, somebody posted this on the other day on Facebook. They were like, hey, I want something that creates real residual income. What's the best company? What's the best product for creating residual income? Now, a lot of people, they'd jump in there and they'd say skincare would be the best. They'd say vitamins would be the best. They'd say, well, people use skincare for the rest of their life based on this study or that. And that stuff's true. Skincare's a great business. Vitamins are a great business. Information products are a great business. There's a lot of great businesses out there. But here's the thing that really actually is creating that residual income. It's a customer who probably likes you, who buys something again and again and again. Most of the time they're going to do that because they like you. So it's actually a relationship with a human being who's purchasing that product, whatever it is, that's actually creating the residual income. It is not the product, right? So the product's important because part of the relationship is you delivering. However, it's a person who pulls their credit card out and decides to buy that again and again. And so if you don't have that connection, well, what is their loyalty going to be like? Well, their loyalty is going to last as long as the next hot thing that they'd then jump to, right? Number 4, right? There's a key to building this business in a really big way, and that's building people, right? I heard this the first time. I think I heard Ron Pereira say this. He was an Amway leader. He had about 500,000 active people in his team when I ran into him back in 2002. And I'm not in Amway, but I really liked Ron. And I only have positive things to say about that experience with him. And here's what he said. He said, a lot of people think that what we're really doing is we're selling products. He says, which is part of the truth. We are selling products. He says, and a lot of people think what we're really doing is we're recruiting people, which is true. We also recruit people. He said, a lot of people think what we're doing is we're selling events, which is true. We also sell the events. He says, but that's not really what we're doing. What we're actually doing is we are building people. Because when you build people, you see that horn that went off in the background when I did that? That horn went off because it's like, I don't know, God was saying, yeah, listen to this. I'm just messing with you. But here's the thing, right? You notice how I always talk about things in the background like that? There is a reason I do that, by the way. Build people. He says you're building people. And when you build people, they build a really long-term, really big business, because you're actually building the thing that builds the business. So don't focus on building your business, focus on building people. Isn't that a good relationship focus? I like that. So here's the fifth thing that you can do. Once again, the 4 points are getting conversions, right? Is not as important as getting responsive relationships. Point number 2 is getting a conversion is different than getting a convert. Point number 3 is you want to build residual income that lasts. Point number 4 is you want to build people to build your income. Point number 5, what is it? Well, if you want to grow with us, here's how you can do it. Go down below, put in your email, click Give Me the Daily Shortcut. I want to give you some gifts to help you take these concepts and apply them. And every day, I want to give value to your life. We are a personal development community, and so we give free personal development 5 days a week. And whether you ever buy or anything or not, this is going to continue going on. You can keep growing with us in your business. We will help you make we will help you exaggerate ridiculously the quality of your life over the next couple of years. And you do that by growing you, because if I grow you, you're going to grow your business, right? That's the whole principle of relationships, the 12-letter word. So right now, scroll down. You're going to put your email in right now. You're going to claim your daily shortcut. And what is that? It's a PDF for free. It's an audio version of today's show for free. And also, we're going to ask you some questions, see if we can help you to build a better life. And so go down right now, put your email in, and also tell us what you thought about this in the comments. Tell us what you like best about the show. Tell us what you learned. Tell us what you're going to change. And I'm looking forward to helping you to change your life and to make ridiculously bigger commissions by building people. So right now, scroll down until you see the email field. Put your email in there now. Hit the button. I'll see you on the next page. It's Dave Wood, and this is another episode of The Daily Shortcut.